Here's the Mindful Man reading Apricot, a chapter from Apricot, which is an Amazon KDP, entitled Lion's Den. We're going to go somewhere a lot more exciting, Alf said to a worried-looking apricot as they bounced along the road. They stopped at a big gate with a big sign. Lion's Exclosure, it read, and Apricot understood. Unlike most guinea pigs, it was well read, and he'd seen enough of lions on TV that he knew they were dangerous. He didn't want to become a snack. As soon as they walked through the big iron gates, a loud roar rang out, and the hairs on the back of Apricot's neck bristled. It was frightening, and he hoped that the bars were strong and secure. On hearing the roar, the children squealed with delight, and then ran away. Apricot wasn't surprised. He felt like running away too. Alf was grinning, and he seemed to be enjoying himself for a change. If only he would enter the cage, thought Apricot naughtily. The roar grew louder, and the trees and the bushes were beginning to quiver and bend like straws. Something wicked this way comes, said Alf, as he grinned maniacally, and he lit up another cigarette. Apricot was tempted to bed down into the safety of his bag, but natural curiosity and possessing a brave heart got the better of him. Here she comes, said Alf, covering them once again in thick ugly smoke. The lion stood before them, huge and terrifying. Its teeth were as white as ivory, and they looked as sharp as a pirate's knife. Alf's cig dropped out of his mouth, and it sizzled on the floor as if in shock. Apricot's eyes grew as large as saucers, but he was no longer afraid. Apricot was fascinated by the colours of the lion. Its golden mane and its wise eyes stared at them, causing poor Apricot to quiver. It was as if the lion could read their minds, Apricot thought, impressed but worried. Alf was also impressed, being lion-like himself in his mind. She's amazing, a beauty, he shouted loudly, and he puffed on this cig with boy-like excitement. I wish that I could take her home, he said. Apricot didn't think Mary would like that. We wouldn't get any trouble with her next to us, said Alf, cracking loudly. Apricot had to agree. He couldn't imagine anyone bothering them with a ginormous lion with them. The lion yawned, and Apricot could see right into its huge cavernous mouth and down her red bloody throat, and he imagined all of the poor unfortunate creatures who had ended up there, all of the food which must have been eaten. Apricot didn't have long to imagine. A very nervous-looking gatekeeper ushered into the enclosure. He had a long pole in one hand and a huge slab of meat in the other. The crowd gasped as the huge, hungry-looking lion turned away from it, and it walked determinedly towards the timid-looking guard. He lifted up his stake when he was using like a spear, and he pointed it towards the lion as a warning. But the lion didn't look worried at all. She just licked her lips and gave out another humongous roar. The guard began to shake, and the children began to shake, and even Apricot shook a little. It was that loud. The guard dropped the spear onto the ground in fright, and it clattered, and then he turned and ran away as fast as he could. Some of the children giggled, and then they ran further and further away to safety. Alf wasn't going anywhere, and neither was Apricot. Apricot had no choice. This is great, he said, spitting on the ground for effect. It's the law of the jungle, Alf said. Survival of the fittest. This was something he believed in. He had no time for weakness. To Alf, they were the same thing. Apricot wasn't feeling fit, he was feeling queasy, and he couldn't wait to get away. The huge lion shook its head as it ripped apart the huge chunks of meat with ease like candy floss. Brilliant, said Alf. I'm starting to love this zoo, he said. Now let's see what else they've got to look at, he said with a rare smile. Apricot was very relieved.